The HTC One was a winner of many prestigious awards in 2013, so any successor is going to have a tough time in living up to the same standards. So perhaps by no surprise, the HTC One M8, the successor, is very similar to the original HTC One. There are a few obvious differences, most notably the size and the addition of the second rear camera. Try as you might to find fault with the hardware on this device, there isn't a lot you can really fault here. If I had to find something to complain about, it would be the lack of wireless charging and the lack of RAM. The headline specs include Android 4.4, 2.3 GHz quad-core processor, microSD memory card slot, 2GB of RAM, 16GB internal memory, 5-inch Full HD display, 5-megapixel front-facing camera. Inevitably, comparison has to be made to the original HTC One, as existing owners decide whether it's a worthwhile upgrade. The M8 has a faster processor and only 16GB of internal memory in comparison to the 32 on the original one. The M8 does have a microSD memory card slot with support for up to 128GB cards. There is a bigger screen with a higher PPI in the M8, but the sacrifice is the size, bigger and heavier than the original. Samsung's Galaxy S5 and Sony's Xperia Z2 will be giving the M8 a real run for its money. The S5 tops the bill for processing power, whilst the Z2 packs an extra 1GB of RAM. The Z2 has the slightly larger display at 5.2 inches, whilst the resolution is consistent over all three. The PPI changes marginally. The cameras are where there is the biggest difference between the models, and much of this will come down to user preference on the final results. All are going to give pretty decent results, but the M8's Ultra Pixel may struggle. The Z2 and M8 have the best feel to them and are heavier as a result of the more premium materials, but the S5 is more plasticky to the touch, but wins for weight and resilience to damage. It might be big, but this beauty is a class act. From every angle it looks superb. The brushed aluminium gives the impression that someone has painstakingly polished it and you just want to touch it, as cheesy it may sound. The edges are soft, there are no sharp or squared corners on this phone, although I'm not sure I can really agree with the edgeless statements that have been made by HTC. Yes, the edges are less defined, but there are still edges. The 5-inch screen runs almost to the edges, making the device appear thinner, but this phone is tall. There's quite a bit of extra bezeling at the top and the bottom, but allowances need to be made for the speakers. I have to agree with many others and say that the headphone jack is perhaps in the best position it can be. Many are located on the top of the phone, but when using this with a set of headphones and sliding it in the pocket, the bottom makes sense. The top of the phone is dressed with a glossy black band under which sits the IR port for the remote control, and to the right side is the power button. Personally, I think this is a poor place for the power button. The right side of the device has become the norm, and for those with smaller hands, stretching to the top can be awkward if not a right pain. The double tap feature on the display helps alleviate this issue somewhat. Crafted from aluminium, there's no removable back cover on this phone and everything is sealed inside. This leaves a smooth, shiny and slippery back surface. When competing with the best, you need to be packing a punch here, and the M8 is no letdown. HD resolution and a PPI of 441, you will have to be used to studying precious jewels to find fault. If you're playing back a few photos or watching the latest blockbuster movie, the viewing experience will be superb. HTC have kept things clean and simple on the software side of the M8. In the apps tray, you can customize the layout of the apps, from most recently used to alphabetical to your own custom layout. Even apps in folders if you want. Whilst all the usual Google Play apps and services are available out of the box, there are also additions such as HTC's TV Remote, Zoe, Car, HTC Guide, Kid Mode and Stocks, among many others. There is an FM radio included for those who always ask. HTC Guide is an interesting addition and acts as a diagnosis tool / FAQ guide to some extent to avoid unnecessary calls into support lines. Whilst it's relatively basic in what it actually offers, it serves as a first port of call option for newer smartphone users for any questions they may have. Blink feed is something that I think you will either like or not. I'm not won over by it yet. It's a nice way to integrate lots of your regular news and social feeds, getting all or just highlights from each in a chronological way, and is in my opinion a nice quick view option. You can easily integrate other content from other news outlets in a variety of different categories, from world news through to automotive, as well as decide what shows up in your highlights. Scroll down from the top of the screen and you're presented with the notification bar, complete with the toggles for settings such as Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. These can all be customized to your preference. Hidden in the settings, although offered on first setup, is the transfer service from HTC, which aims to make it simpler to switch from one phone to another, from transferring just contacts through to music and videos too. It might not be necessary, but it's a nice inclusion. The awkward location of the power button for me was an issue, may not be so much for others. However, a double tap on the screen will wake the phone up and take you to the lock screen. Another double tap at the lock screen will turn it off. This double tap, rather frustratingly, does not work in any other place on the phone. To turn the screen off, you still need the power button for that. A swipe from the left to right on the display when the screen is off will take you to blink feed. When considering the connectivity, the only real negative is the lack of wireless charging. You might not need it, you might not want it, but there's no option to have it or add it if you do. MHL 3.0 is also not present. Whilst MHL might not be the technology that every man and his dog has heard about, it appears to be the approved standard now, with the majority adopting it. Version 3 brings 4K video out, so there's an argument there's no need for it on the One, like there is on the Z2, but it does not make the M8 all that future-proof. Aside from this, you can't really complain. Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, 3G, 4G, DLNA, it's all there. The One has a TV remote built into it too. If you're like me and you often keep your phone closer than the TV remote, this can be a benefit. Although I've been unable to get myself out of that mindset of using the traditional remote, HTC's works perfectly well though. Hands down the best speakers on a smartphone to date, better than the original HTC One. They're not the loudest, but by no means quiet, but for an all-round performance, then this is the one to go for. Whatever type of music you throw at it, the device manages to make it sound great. We've all been there when you're in a slightly noisy environment trying to watch a video clip but can't quite hear the sound, even with the speakers on full volume. Imagine the same situation with the HTC One. The difference would be you would hear every word. There is no doubt that HTC set the standard for speakers on mobile devices, and other manufacturers should take note. The One has 3 cameras, 2 on the back and 1 on the front. Starting with the front, it's 5 megapixels, which has to be one of the largest for a front-facing camera on a phone. It also has a very wide-angle lens, so you get a lot in the shot. In short, it's top-notch if you are really into the whole selfie craze. There's even a countdown timer so you have time to perfect the pose. The back of the phone is home to the 2 cameras. The second camera does have a purpose, but it does not create the 3D shots like some devices have passed. HTC have stuck with the ultra-pixel camera, which is essentially a 4 megapixel camera in comparison to Samsung's 16 and Sony's 20.7 megapixel shooters. The sensor allows more light in and is in HTC's eyes equivalent. There is a lot of discussion around whether it really is or not, but it does not take bad shots, just the resolution limits when it comes to printing and viewing on screens larger than that of your HTC. The second camera, rated at 2 megapixels, is used to help create and manage effects on the image after it has been captured. It allows you to edit pictures and change primarily focus at a later date without needing to go back to the original scene and reshoot the picture. This is excellent as it gives you greater functionality out of the box and makes for simpler editing. The downside is that both the foreground and background really need to be obviously in focus in the first shot to be able to change the focus at a later date. If one or the other are naturally out of focus, then the duo camera mode will not be compatible with that shot. The other issue is the defocus or bokeh effect that it gives, in some circumstances, looks like an add-on effect rather than being the result of clever photography. I'm sure this can be improved with software updates and a bit of practice, but it's practicing to get this effect right. There are many other settings within the camera that give you control over what you can do from before you take the shot right through to the stages of editing. Straighten, rotate, flip or draw on the photo. Add frames and effects to the image, including stickers for a bit of fun. A couple of the more interesting edit features are Foregrounder, Seasons and Dimensions Plus. Dimension Plus gives more depth to the image, a bit like a 3D image where the image appears to move based on the way you tilt your HTC One. Cool, but not as useful all told. Seasons offers an animated effect like snow in front of the image, so you can have snow falling in front of a couple of friends you've taken a picture of. Foregrounder offers effects for the picture, including sketch, zoom blur, cartoon and colorize. Foregrounder, in my opinion, is the most useful, but I still do not feel that many will make much use of it over the long term. With all of these effects, the image has to match certain criteria, so low light shots will not be applicable. Overall, the image results were generally okay and certainly give most smartphones a run for their money, but I'm not convinced the HTC has enough to actually beat the S5 or the Z2. In most shots, the subject was darker and colours duller than they were in real life. Despite the camera sensor being able to capture more light, I didn't actually feel the results showed evidence of this. There's no dedicated camera button, so quick access to the camera is by turning the device from portrait to landscape mode whilst pressing on the volume key. Video recording in Full HD is of course present, but you do not get 4K recording like Sony or Samsung. It might not be needed, but should a flagship not offer it? Always a contentious issue is the battery life on a phone. The HTC One M8 is something that most should agree on. It is very good for a device of this type with a screen of this size. More than a day's use should easily be possible for the normal user, whilst the lighter user will likely get 2+ days. HTC have done very well to get such power out of the One as they do, and the power saver technology easily competes with Sony's stamina mode, with controls over just what the phone does in this mode. Hats off to HTC here, top job. The HTC One M8 is a superb handset. There's a lot to like about it, but there are a few small things that could be of annoyance over the strong contenders. Not being able to dunk it in water isn't a deal breaker, but it'd be a nice to have. The physical size and slightly slippery nature of the product is a potential hazard, but one that comes with the ultimate gain of style and that premium look. The camera didn't win me over as I would have hoped, but in a world where the majority of content is shared online only, it is no doubt enough. Performance is slick and media playback is the best thing available yet thanks to the astonishingly good speakers. Anyone keen on an HTC One M8 will not be disappointed if you look past some of the, dare I say, gimmicky features. If you're due an upgrade, then I think the M8 offers enough over the M7 to make it a worthwhile but retain that familiarity. All said though, Sony and Samsung have very strong offerings. Which one is right for you will involve looking slightly deeper than the spec sheet, in my opinion.